Hi everyone, my name is Carlos Davalos. I'm the Director of Operations of Vision2Reality Foundation, and today we have the pleasure to be with Sam Thiara and Manan Khurana for our podcast this time on Stories of Ours. So Sam and please Manan, feel free to introduce yourselves so we can start the chat. Sam, you can go first if you want.
Sure, that'd be great. The easiest way for me to describe myself is the fact that I'm an individual who's guided by five core elements, five anchor points: servant leadership, story sharing, activator igniter, champion enabler, and a creative collaborator. Those five things have enabled me to help individuals, teams, and organizations to their pinnacle best. But equally, it's made me into a speaker and a storyteller, a mentor and a coach, a writer, blogger, and a screenplay writer, entrepreneur, educator, problem solver, and a community activator. And usually that's just the best way I can describe my organic career and life.
Thank you, Sam. Please, Manan, feel free.
Absolutely. I was really inspired by Sam's introduction and the way that he puts out his values. So I did some of my own homework and reflection journey, and in that I found the top three values that really guide me in every decision that I make or the project that I take on, which is perseverance, authenticity, and growth. Currently, I'm a student studying psychology at Langara. I'm about to graduate soon, and I'm really excited to work in HR.
Thank you both. So I've been doing my research. I have been seeing different videos from you both, and actually, I found there's some kind of pattern that is in between you both, on some coincidences. And one of those is, Manan, I saw that you kind of embrace failing, and you've been chatting about the importance of failing and how to embrace failing and go through that. And actually, I saw also Sam one kind of your quotes from one of your sessions that said, "Your story evolves when you stop chasing perfection and start embracing the detours." Right? So could you expand a bit on that? You both, maybe also Manan, from your side, I would love to hear from both of your perspectives.
Sure. I guess easiest for me to describe is that there's a couple of things that I always share in that perspective and that essence is, one of the quotes I live by is obstacles are the necessary bricks on the road to success. And so many of the times when I'm mentoring and coaching, people are fearing the obstacles. But really, the obstacles are there because if you don't have obstacles, if you don't have setbacks, and I don't use the word failure, actually, I use the word setbacks, how are you going to understand success? If you don't have, sadness, how are you going to really appreciate happiness? So for me, it's about embracing this idea that, you know, we strive to this thing called perfection. And I wrote a blog post about this. It's called Wabi Sabi. And perfection is actually an imperfection. And, rather than striving for perfection, one should strive for quality. In other words, if you strive for perfection, it will frustrate you. It's going to be a situation where it's not good enough. You may not feel good enough. But when it's of quality, all of a sudden you've put your life's, work into something, and that actually is what should be celebrated, is this idea of, rather than shooting for this perfection, understand that there are going to be obstacles, overcoming these obstacles, but embrace this idea that quality matters and, you are truly the essence of what you put into your work.
Thanks,
Amazing.
Sam. And how do you picture this with your perspective, Manan?
Yeah, and one thing that Sam said, I've remember having this one conversation with you, Sam, where you mentioned this and looking at obstacles instead of failures, and then calling it setbacks. I think that if I look back from 13 to 17, moving to a new country, Regina, Saskatchewan, sorry, boarding school in Regina, Saskatchewan, I realized that I had a lot of setbacks. I played video games a lot, and then I experimented with alcohol a lot. And now that I look back at it, I think that, wow, I've grown so much. But I do remember being in when I was 15 and thinking that I am just a failure. And I'm so ashamed of myself. I have, the things that I've done, and I think about how much parents have invested in me, but I just didn't like the person I was becoming. And now that I look back, I take that as growth because I know that I've seen that part of myself. I know what I can do, and it's about choosing to take the right step every day. But again, it's not going to be perfect. It's just going to be one step at a time. So that's how I see it.
Beautiful words, both of you. Uh, and one thing that came to my mind is at the end, and also I want to embed also the stories kind of mindset to our conversation as well. At the end, part of the setbacks are is part of our story. If your story is a movie, if the movie is successes, everything is beautiful, right? So at the end, our stories is the things that make everything more adventurous or or anecdotal. That's the right word, or special. So if you return back, both of you, and of course, Manan, you're very young, but still talking about setback, what would you think are the setbacks that help you to make you the person you are right now, that you remember, that you want to highlight?
I mean, I can count on so many setbacks, right? But when I think about the pivotal one, it's definitely, I was always a shy, intimidated kid. So the first time that I was asked to do a public speech was actually in my German class, where I was supposed to recite a poem that I had spent so much time learning. Like I would spend days just reading through it, saying it to my friends, and I was like, okay, I'm finally prepared. I'm finally prepared to do this. So I stand up and I look all the classmates in the eyes. Worst thing to do, don't ever do that. Don't look everybody in the eye. Just look at the wall or something. That's what I learned. I started speaking. I started reciting the song that I had learned and put so much effort into it. But within 3 lines of it, I couldn't. I choked. I remember looking at my script that I had in my hand, and I couldn't read the words out of that script. And that was when I realized that I don't want to end up like this when I grow old. And pushing myself forward and seeing my friends' reaction that they were there for me, but I just couldn't do it. So that was definitely one of those pivotal moments that made me realize that communication and the power of your words is just so important, and that I see in every interaction today.
I was just going to say that we all have what we would call our hero's journey. In other words, I appreciate, Carlos, what you had talked about. Like, if the movie started out with the success and the success just carried on, it's not an exciting movie. We need to have these setbacks that engages us because then it engages others. And in my situation, it's no different. That you know, I reflect back on when I graduated from university with a degree in business and political science. And, this whole idea of who's lucky to get me because, what a great, you got a double major and whatnot. And I mean, in my journey, it's like I started applying for jobs and, I've got 86 rejection letters that I still hold on to. And those rejection letters initially were, what do you mean? I mean, like, who's lucky to get me? It turned out to be, am I lucky to get a job? And in my situation, I mean, I finally did get a job. And, that job I landed was being a janitor, mopping floors and emptying rubbish bins in a hospital. And in that situation, rather than, again, focusing on, well, this is the end of the road, or how did I wind up here and all, I just was like, okay, I was not prepared in life. And it was an awakening, and it made me rethink my ideas and thoughts and plans. And in that situation, now I reflect back on that. And being a janitor taught me so much that actually still carries me to who I am today. And there were three valuable lessons I'll share. One, my father said, I don't care what you do for a living, you have to do the best job possible. And I put my effort into that job of being the best janitor I could be. And that's carried me even to this day in anything I do. Quality matters. Second valuable lesson. There were times I would get on an elevator. I'm not a professional, I'm a janitor, so there were times I'm ignored on an elevator. I know what that feels like. I make sure I engage with people on a daily basis, even to this day. It doesn't matter who you are. I'm going to have a conversation with that person, whether it's a greeting, whether it's something that is more meaningful. And the third valuable lesson is in anything we do in life, we have an opportunity to learn from those experiences. And what are you going to gather that's going to support and help you in your journey? And you always have to go in with a learning mindset. So that sort of comes around as, the lessons that I learned that have really been at the, cornerstone of my life, as lessons learned and the importance of having setbacks.
Well, thanks, Manan. Thanks, Sam. And Manan, now hearing kind of some experiences, do you feel related now that you have been growing and you've going through your own journey? For example, maybe you're looking for jobs, etc. Are you going through certain things right now or in the past few years that are related to Sam's experience?
Absolutely. And, whenever I hear this story about Sam and, how you started off as a janitor, it just makes me think of the people who we look up to today. So many, like I look up to you and if you wouldn't have shared this with me, if you wouldn't have been, vulnerable in sharing this story and sharing these lessons, I wouldn't have known that part of you. And I would have always thought that people are perfect and I'm supposed to be perfect as soon as I was born out of my womb, my mother's womb. So things, when he shares that, it definitely makes me think of, yeah, there are parts of my life even today that I'm not doing properly. Like maybe I was supposed to eat an orange, but I decided to eat ice cream. Small things like that. And the way that I see that in my own career journey, or I'm also applying for jobs right now, and I think about the same story of like, oh, who's ready to get me? But it's a very unconventional approach. I started studying psychology, but now I'm interested in business. That's not normal. So I know that I will be getting these questions a lot, and I have to be there. And I have to be my honest self and say, why am I doing this? And the concept of why, that's what Sam talks about a lot. That's the foundation of, when those interviewers interview me, that's what they want to know, right?
Yeah, I think part of the question ourselves, it's so important that maybe even myself, I wasn't fully aware of how important is questioning yourself
Mm,
and not thinking that life is linear. Told you both that I've had a similar kind of experience in the past. I worked at Safeway and night shift as a grocery clerk with a lot of pride. So it was a great experience for me. And actually, I miss it in some moments on the feeling. I miss the feeling
mm,
because I learned a lot. And actually, I was there. I was in a position where people ignored me in the moment when I was in the elevator or just walking around and just people
mhm,
walking. But once you start engaging in conversations, people start to see you, right? And people start to be curious about you as well. So that's something else I want to talk about. Also, Sam and actually Manan, you've also chatted about this before. But curiosity is a superpower,
mm,
right? So in this sense, I saw also Manan that you said, if I don't know something, I'll dig until I figure it out. Is
mm,
how I've landed every opportunity. In this case, for you both, how has curiosity led you to where you are right now?
Mhm.
Maybe Sam, you
Um,
want to start?
Sure. I mean, curiosity has been a huge aspect of my life because, there is the status quo. And fast forward, like years later, I was working in a corporate job, and that was a linear pathway of going into a direction. But then curiosity came to me in that realm and said, but what's on the other side of the fence? What else is there in this world? And I wound up leaving the corporate job all because of curiosity. And curiosity is you don't just vacate, you don't just go curious without a plan. Curiosity has to have a plan as well. Because let's say, for example, curiosity, if you decided to go for a hike and you just decided, okay, I'm going to hop on this path and go for a walk, you could get lost. Yeah, and then next thing you know, search and rescue has to come and find you because you didn't go in with a plan. Curiosity has to have blended in with it a level of a plan, not a structure that is um, going to be so rigid, but rather, here's where I am. I'm interested in this area. Curiosity carries me forward because now I go in with an open mind. And when I go forward with an open mind, road signs appear. I'll give you an example. So I did my first TEDx speech was on storytelling, and the first essence of that piece of storytelling for me is curiosity. In other words, I came up with a concept called carpe. Carpe is how I build and develop stories and how it's really impacted my life. And what carpe stands for is curiosity, appreciation, reflection, perspectives, experience. But curiosity is the starting point. Curiosity is something that just stops you when you're on a journey. But then when you're going forward, appreciation is when you've stopped and you look at something or something unique and distinct. Appreciation now becomes this understanding and appreciating something for more than what it is. But then if you start adding purpose, values to it, but that's through reflection. There's the R. And we all have our own perspectives. So my view of the world would be different than the rest of everyone else's, and same with each and every one of you. But the perspectives helps to add more significance into it. And experience means if I don't capture it and make it into a story or into an experience, it's gone. It's going to evaporate. But curiosity is the first piece of this whole process that allows you the opportunity to build this whole aspect into your life of of understanding. And curiosity is critical. But again, it goes back to that whole aspect of having a little bit of a plan, but being curious and allowing yourself to be curious so that you can actually then venture down and build. But when you have that carpe concept, you've started pulling in some of those experiences that are going to be with you on your journey. But curiosity is going to be critical.
And Manan, in these terms, knowing about a little bit about your journey, you were thinking about science psychology and now you changed to business. How was that transition more or less translated into this kind of framework that Sam gave you? Because I assume curiosity started to be something led you to think about business, right?
Yes, absolutely, Carlos. And when I think of curiosity, it's a concept that we talk about now, which I'm really happy to, share my thoughts on. But about 5 to 6 years ago, I didn't have it, or I wasn't sure that I could have this luxury. And the reason why I call this a luxury is because you can be curious when you know that there's a support system to fall back on.
Mhm.
And I'm very happy and grateful to my parents to, give me this support system. So when I was changing my thoughts from, psychology and business and always going back and forth, it was because I didn't have the specific why dialed down. As much as I love psychology, I love the business operation side of things, which is why I'm always curious to know more. And not that psychology doesn't play a role in it. It's just I choose to work and be curious at this point of my life, spend more time working than learning the theory part, which is equally important. But the curiosity for me comes from just putting myself out there, seeing what Vancouver has to offer, seeing the companies, and seeing how that dynamic would make me the person that I will become.
Thanks, man. And Sam, once you started figure out that you want to study business,
Mhm.
was it linear
Mhm.
or did you went through different stepping stone or sideways?
Yeah, I think for me, it was at that stage and where I was in life, it was almost by a process of elimination because, you know, I wasn't really into the sciences or the numbers. And I just sort of fell into that aspect of business. And there were the aspects of business that really resonated for me, human resources and marketing, the creative side, I guess you could say not the um, number side of things like accounting and finance. So I was really much more drawn towards a component. And fortunately, business was, you get a little level of an understanding of those other courses that may not resonate with you. But it really helped me to realize that, and that was the curiosity piece, that I'm really focused on the qualitative side of business, not the quantitative side of business. But then related to that, though, was the exploration and the curiosity of history, political science, and, exploring those areas. And those are also very qualitative in nature. So it resonated. So I think the curiosity for me was having that qualitative side of me that allowed me to focus in on what really mattered to me. And, that's why, to some extent, Carlos, to your point, my career was linear to a certain point where it made sense that if I'm getting a degree in business, well, and a double major in political science, but that here's the pathway one should follow, a linear pathway. And at a certain point, though, when curiosity started to kick in, and the realization that the journey, that linear pathway that I was on, is not the right pathway. That's when I started to switch and focused on those five core elements I gave at the beginning that really resonated for me. And a realization that the pathway I was on just never resonated. And now all of a sudden, for many, many years now, my pathway has been very organic and, not structured. And, that's where the curiosity piece and to your point about curiosity, Carlos, I live in curiosity every single day of my life. And that has enabled me to have such an organic pathway and journey.
Thank you both. And right now, in your current moments, if you're a kind of a, each of you are a business, what are your business units? Like, for example, Sam and Manan. I know Sam, you're teaching, and Manan, you have the podcast. What would you say are your own business units? What do you dedicate your time right now?
This is a good question. I don't know how to fully answer it, but I'll tell you on how I think of my podcasting and the consulting side of it. I see that as a business of people, right? So in this business of people, something that Sam mentioned, which is organic, and the qualitative side is me showing up, me being there or pitching my, podcast and how to attract good guests. And on the quantitative side, it's more so reaching out on LinkedIn, having those metrics that track the growth of the podcast. So the way that I am putting myself or using my time right now is to grow both units side by side and see what success that would bring along the way, while also being curious and letting, this international student life of the political stability of Canada, changing immigration systems, and also having to reinvent myself depending on the job that I'm applying to. So all these things come into play, and sometimes I have to put some things on pause because as much as I would like to take 21 things together, I
Hmm.
don't think I've yet perfected on how to do it like Sam does. Something that I'm still working on. So I treat my own self as a business because I wrote an article about having an entrepreneurial mindset. And it's not just the business of the podcast and the consulting, it's also how I maintain my spaces, how I maintain my relationships, public relations, you could call it that. So everything about my life is the way that I see it as a business. And I try to grow and be curious in different parts. Carlos, if I may, can I ask you a question about what do you see curiosity? Like, what parts of your life are you the most curious about?
Well,
Maybe
right
I can,
now
yeah.
I'm dedicating like I decided it was something I chose. For example, I've never been to therapy in my life,
Mm,
but I've went through a lot in my journey, failures and successes. So it's been great, and I enjoyed everything. But actually, I really want to know more about myself and why I made my
mm,
decisions, why I behave the way I behave, why my reactions are the way they are, for example. So I decided this year I wanted to, and thankfully my benefits can help me invest in that. But I'm right now going to therapy because I really want to know who I am, like in a deeper sense. So that's I'm being very curious on everything related to me, I would say. So right now, this year, that's my focus. Of course, careers, etc. I want to grow, but I feel if I want to grow and go into this next step, being very aware of who I am will help me take that next step. So that's my biggest thing at the moment.
What you just said is the essence of really the journey that I have been on for many, many years. The moment I stopped focusing on what I want to do for a living and focused on who I am, that's when things started to materialize for me. And as Manan just mentioned, presently I've got 21 projects I'm working on. Now, conceivably, people say, well, there's no way that anyone could properly dedicate their time and life to 21 projects at the same time. But here's the thing. Number one, those 21 projects don't feel like work. Number two, the 21 projects, all of them relate to the anchor points that I hold in life. And those anchor points are servant leadership, story sharing, activator igniter, champion enabler, and a creative collaborator. The way that I maneuver around these 21 projects, though, it's based on priorities. So I'm not teaching anymore at SFU, and I'm what they call an adjunct professor, meaning I'm in the bullpen. If an opportunity comes up, then yes, there may be a chance to go back to teaching. But this has really opened up an opportunity for me to dedicate things that were always on the back burner to bring it to the front burner. But my anchor points really, even if you take it to a core level, so I've given you 5 anchor points that I live by. But even if I was to narrow it down to one central point, it's the fact that I really care. I care about community. I care about individuals. It's about those 21 projects. It's about how do I focus and build so that I'm not a bystander in life, that I'm able to contribute to the betterment of individuals, teams, organizations, and community and society as a whole. So that's why, for me, it's very organic. And I wake up every morning going like, okay, what can I face? What can I tackle today? And not from a whimsical, where certain things are not being done. No, no, I do carry a calendar with me. I've got my priorities. But equally, like I said, it makes it very easy for me because I'm having so much fun with whatever I get to build.
Thank you for sharing that. And quick question to both. Do you have, for example, okay, once you wake up in the morning, do you have any routines in the morning? Like, I don't know, appreciation, gratitude, maybe meditation, whatever, training, like workout,
Okay,
you
I
name it.
can share. I can tell you what my routine is.
Yeah.
Because I've been asked that a lot, Carlos. What's your routine? And I said my routine is to have no routine. I mean, apart from waking up in the morning and, brushing your teeth, having a cup of tea and having breakfast, after that, it's a free for all. And I don't have any routines after that.
Human.
Adding on to what Sam said, that's again leaving a little bit of room for curiosity and just knowing about what feels good to you. And thanks for Sam for sharing that. For me, because I'm a student and I have to make sure that I'm, attending my classes, doing the projects, I definitely have a Google Calendar with me all the time. So I like to put the big chunks of, as Sam mentioned, the priority things. So my school is a priority, so that goes. Anything related to podcasting or business, that goes. But I definitely leave some room for me to just relax and reflect as well, because I think that's one of the key things. And Carlos, just like you said, I'm also in therapy for, about 6 months now. And I realize that those times where I am alone, instead of thinking about what's the next thing I should jump on right away, right now, I have to sometimes leave time for growth and think, okay, well, what are some ideas that are coming up? What are some actions I can do? And that's Sam is really good at that, because I was always so curious to know, how is he so creative? Like, for example, my podcast is called Survive to Thrive. He helped me come up with that name. And I was like, why can I not think about this? But that means that you have to leave some room to grow. You have to, leave some room for creativity. And I wasn't taught that, but it's still something that I'm learning. So I like to keep some room for in the morning to just breathe and relax.
That's so cool. But I feel at the end, Sam, of course, you've lived more than we do. You have more experience, wisdom, right? At the end, it's everything, right? So I feel there's. Have you been, for example, to therapy? Oh, of course, you're a coach. You have been through different kind of therapies before, Sam, or no?
Have gone through therapy, but whether it's like I've mentored and coached about 5,500 people to date.
Oh yeah,
3 to 8 conversations a week with individuals who want to realize the journey of what we call life. And oftentimes people are like, well, you've mentored and coached, never charged a penny, by the way, 5,500 people. But Sam, come on, who's your mentor? And it goes back to what you said about even the navigating therapy and life. I've never, so the person, I do have a mentor, but the mentor is me. I self-mentor. And it's not that I have my own level of therapy, but a lot of my life is revolved around my writing, and by writing and thinking deeper, I'm able to work my way through how to support myself through life. So I've never actually gone through therapy. I believe therapy is very important, very critical. But for me, I think it's through my writing and through the opportunity of being able to speak with others and to share. And to be
Mhm.
fair, I have no problem of being able to share vulnerabilities as well. For example, tomorrow I've got two conversations that are, going to be deep and meaningful conversations. And I think it's also important because people come to me, well, number one, to seek the answers of life. And I tell them I'm a difficult
Hmm.
monk. I'm a monk that they come to me saying, well, what should I do or how should I be? And my thing is, I'm a difficult monk, meaning the answers that people are seeking lie within them. And my job is just to ask questions, and the answers will come out of them. So that's the response that I find is really important. But equally at the same time, engaging in conversations, I'm always listening to what they're saying. And it helps me. Like, I'll give you an example. Somebody I was talking to just the other day, we were talking, and I mean, my one of the quotes I live by, as I mentioned earlier, is obstacles are the necessary bricks on the road to success. But then if you look at bricks on a road, are those bricks, they could also become a wall, and the wall's going to stop you, but the bricks on the road are going to help you get where you need to go. So for me, now there's either a blog post I want to write or an Instagram post with a quote that's going to be, you know, are the things that are in your pathway, are they the bricks on the road to your success, or are they now the bricks that are going to hold you back as a wall? Like these are the things that come forward with me when I'm, again, curiosity or just being open and listening to what people say. I actually had to stop the conversation with this person and said, look, do you mind if I just stop for a second? I had to quickly jot it down because it's not what they said. They never said it that way, but it popped in my head and I had to capture it. So that's how I think for me it works, is from a therapy standpoint, is listening to people, but equally at the same time being open to what is being shared with me from whatever source, because that's helping me as an individual.
And you just talked about writing. So you
Hmm.
wrote your thoughts, you wrote your
Yeah.
like just ideas, and how has writing helping you to understand yourself?
Well, the writing has always, like 14 years ago, I never saw myself as an author. It wasn't even a figment of my imagination. But then after my first TEDx speech, people are like, oh man, personal storytelling. I want to tell stories. How can I tell stories? You should write a book about it. So I saw the road signs in my life to say, you got to start writing a book. And I had no experience whatsoever. So I had to learn and develop and build. And then now I've got a second book out already. Third book is in the way. There's a fourth book in the wings as well. But writing is a way for me to express myself. And I find that it's been beneficial for me because it's enabled me to uh, again, the writing that I do is to help other people as well. What I've experienced or my conversations with people, it's there to help and support other people. So the third book that's going to be coming out soon is called Calm and Sense, is common sense.
Mhm.
30 life lessons to fulfillment. Because a lot of what I've shared, like, if I can have these one-on-one conversations, and truly I do feel fortunate I can have those conversations. But if I can put those, 30 reflections on how to lead a fulfilling life that somebody reads and they're like, oh my gosh, like I needed to hear this today. That's another way that I can do it. But all of these lessons have come to me through personal experiences.
That's so nice. I'm gonna change the topic to mentorship because that's I think that's goes directly to that. Man, you approach. How did you meet Sam? How did you
Yeah.
approach him?
Uh,
And my question would be, how important was mentorship for you at that stage in your life
mm.
before meeting Sam?
I remember that. So there's a funny story behind it. And I wanted to start a club called Student Solidarity Project at Langara, which was supposed to act as a bridge between international students and domestic students and allow there to be less misconceptions. So as I was going about it, I was already part of the Greater Vancouver Board of Trade, and I saw Sam speak at one of our orientation events. And I looked at him, I was like, okay, maybe he's Indian, maybe he's gone through, the same struggles that I have. Wouldn't it be great if I could pick his brain one day? And so that was a thought that I had. I didn't do follow up. I didn't, reach out for some reason. And that's something that I wish more people would, is to just reach out. Um, so I was at one of these events called EWG Sustainable Event. Nothing to do with storytelling or for Sam to be there. But as soon as I saw Sam there, everything just started to connect. And I was like, okay, well, I don't have answers to these questions. I think this person might have all the answers that I'm looking for. Why don't I just reach out to him? And that's when, the curiosity kicked in as well, to say that maybe I don't have all the answers. So I reached out to him, and he was really kind. He gave me one of his puzzles, and we ended up having a discussion for 2 hours, actually. And at the end, I was like, wow, there's so much that I didn't even know that I didn't know. And that's really something that mentorship has provided me my whole life, and Sam being one of those people who have added to my bucket of knowledge.
Thanks, man. And
Yeah.
the same thing for you, Sam. So first of all, did you have any mentors at the beginning of your career that helped you to set yourself up through life?
It's almost like you were pushed out the door, almost like a bird in a nest, and the mom just pushes them out the door, and you're supposed to fly. So there were no, back in the day, support systems or, career centers or mentorship programs in place. It literally felt like being in a dark room, fumbling around to try to find the light switch. And, a lot of us were going through these challenges at that time, uh, trying to figure things out on our own. And the beauty of it right now is that there's so many people who have careers who are there wanting just to be able to share their experiences, their stories, and how they can try to help people. And as Manan said, like, you got to be brave enough and bold enough to go up to somebody and ask them. Now, yeah, I mean, if they're not interested, well, that's okay. There are so many people out there who are just waiting for you to come up and ask them, what's your journey? How did you get where you are? I'm interested to learn about your journey. What are some lessons that I could learn from you? But for me, unfortunately, I had to figure everything out by myself. And I think that the benefit of this, though, is that, you know, those lessons that I learned by myself, it's the reason I give back wholeheartedly, is because I've been given those lessons, not to hold on to them, but I just have to keep sharing and giving them away. And I do it freely, and I do it with compassion, and I do it with just out of genuine interest. For me, the biggest thing is by having these conversations with people, and you get to see where they go on in life. And it's not to say that they owe me a round of gratitude, or that I now say, okay, great, it's as a result of what the time I spent with them that they have the success. No, no. That person has done the heavy lifting. And I've just maybe put the top bit of icing on to help them get where they need to go. This is why as I mentioned, the five things that matter to me is champion, enabler, activator, igniter. It's the best way for me to describe it, Carlos, is like during the Olympic Games, ice hockey, for example, Canada wins a gold medal. The coach does not get a medal. The players get a medal and they celebrate. But if you ever look at the coach, they stand behind the bench with their arms folded, with the most amazing smile on their face of what they've just accomplished. And that's for me, like thousands of people that I've been able to mentor and coach, that I can still just drop a note to, which I did this morning to somebody who just got a new career. I just dropped them a note saying, I'm very proud of your accomplishments. You know, that's what matters to me.
Carlos, I want to share a quick story adding on to
Sure,
what Sam said.
please.
And to give an example of how he doesn't gatekeep information and how he's so open with it. When I had the thought about starting the podcast, I did some research, and the first person I reached out to was Sam. I said, Sam, here is my research. Here is what I'm thinking. Can you please be the first person who I interview on the podcast? And without a doubt, he said, let me just look at my calendar and we'll make it happen. And that was the role that he played, which is to, give me that confidence. He could have said that, sorry, I don't have time for this, or maybe some other time. But the fact that he was open to it, and I was at a stage where I had never really got outside my comfort zone. This felt like a really powerful thing. And I have a question for the both of you. I'd love to get your input. In these changing working environments, I've heard how most people, when they were working an office job, you would have mentors, but they would be unofficial mentors because it could be your manager or your coworker who would give some insight and something for you to learn. But in these hybrid work environments, how do you think mentorship is going to change or has already changed? What do you think?
I mean, I think that mentorship can be done in many different capacities. And, uh, you know, I also think that mentorship can be organic and it can be structured. I mean, all you have to do is look at the Leaders of Tomorrow program at the Vancouver Board of Trade. You get paired up with somebody, and there are individuals who, and this could be in the corporate setting as well, who would be like, okay, we're going to create a bit more of a structure. You come to me the third Monday of every month with all your questions, 45 minutes, and we'll get through your questions. My way is very organic. We sit down, and the first question I ask people is, what would you like to talk about today? And then we go in any direction it goes. So even whether it's a hybrid or truly just a pure remote or in the office setting, it's more just about the two people connecting and how they connect. Because again, I've seen mentorship pairings where they're in the office, it doesn't work, and some amazing conversations. But then I've even seen the total remoteness of it. Again, doesn't work in certain situations, but for some people, truly amazing. And I've been able to have these conversations and mentorship sessions, both in person and totally virtual, and we make it work depending on the two people and the connectivity between the two people. I think that's first and foremost.
Mm,
I think I totally agree with you too. I think it's more on the will, on the will to do things, because at the end you may have a super wise person next to you, but if you're not willing or you don't have the initiative to talk to this other person, nothing will happen. The willingness should be both ways. So the other person caring and willing to share, and you just willing to ask. So I think it's both ways.
mm,
I think also in mentorship, at least for me, since I came to Canada, for example, really, I didn't know anyone, and I came like just when COVID was starting, so no one wanted to talk to me at that moment, and I didn't know not knew anyone. So I actually started to read a lot of books, and I would say my mentors those first 2 years were books. Like I read a lot of books and they became actually my mentors. I learned so much reading and hearing audiobooks. And that's how I started to learn a bit more about the importance of mentorship actually just through reading. So for example, Sam, even though you didn't have an actual mentor, would you say you had like books that opened your eyes and opened your minds and you were like having those aha moments in certain ways?
The funny thing, Carlos, is I'm an author, and one of the questions I get asked by a lot of people is, well, what do you like to read? I said, I'm sorry, I like to write. I don't like to read that much. So even on that front, I can't even,
mm,
Carlos, what I would say to your audience though is, um, don't be me. Like
mm,
I'm a off the chart outlier with regards to how my life has re evolved.
Yeah.
I think if anything, mine is a unique pathway, which is not for many people. And I would say go the safer route, have a mentor. Now, here's the only thing I would say about mentorship, though. Some people are so focused on the linear path or the journey. I want to be an accountant. I want to be in finance. I want this. I want that. And they want to have a mentor in that area. I'm just going to tell you that some of the best mentors have nothing to do with the area that you want to go into.
Yeah.
Because what that person will do is they're going to give you a different frame of mind and a different reference point. And you can have more than one mentor. It's not like you can't have two or three different mentors for, you could have one that's career focused, but you could have one that's just this person that you need to bounce ideas off. Even just before this podcast, somebody had reached out saying, could we do a conversation? I need to ask you some questions. And it had nothing to do with career. So I said, absolutely. Uh, that's one of the things I would say is some of the best mentors have nothing to do with the area that you want to get into. The second thing is, if you want to be a mentor, and actually even a mentee, the mentee, learn as much as you can about your mentor before you get started. That's one. Number two, though, related to that, though, as a mentor, listen to your mentee. I've had situations with mentors, so even mentoring mentors, I've done that too. Is people, a mentor will be like, yeah, no, the relationship unfortunately didn't work out. It wasn't a good pairing. And I said, really? Well, what happened? And they said, well, I wanted a mentee that was ready to get into the finance. I was hoping to, actually introduce them to people in finance, maybe get them a job. But the person they gave me had very basic finance experience and knowledge. It just didn't work out. And my reply to that mentor was, but did you ask the mentee what was important to them? And they said, oh, I never even really thought of that. Because that mentee wasn't looking for that job. They were looking for, well, what does a person in that industry look like? Their job look like, or their daily patterns. What are the different areas of this area of finance that I could be in? And, learn about that. But they didn't learn any of that because this person was more focused on finding a person they could get the job and then get them out there. So listen to what the mentee has to say as well. So, those are two parts that I think are important is have somebody that you know if you don't get somebody in your area of business, thank yourself and be very fortunate. You're going to learn something new. And if you are a mentor, please listen to what the mentees are saying and don't go in with preconceived ideas.
Thanks,
Super.
Sam. And some quick question on. So you've wrote a lot, and so you've wrote during your life in different certain ways. So would you say you've done a lot of self-reflection and contemplation? I would say, because at the end, part of I would say there's a lot of people. It's not like only you that are done these kind of frameworks of gaining wisdom just by interior, like it's just going deeper into yourself,
Mhm.
understanding yourself. Of course, you studied the storytelling kind of the way of being. So in this sense, you had a framework, or you just started to write whatever came into
Yeah.
your mind?
The funny thing is, I've never done a course in storytelling, and I'm a storyteller. I've never done a public speaking session like Toastmasters or speaking session. I'm a professional speaker now. I think what it is Carlos, you hit the nail on the head on that one. Self-reflection is so critical with regards to my journey. And that's what's given me so much of an essence. But the moment I stopped focusing on what I want to do in life and really turned inward to understand who is this person, and through reflection, it really resonated. And now all of a sudden, when you have self-reflection and a solid understanding of who this person is, now the road signs keep coming up. Like I have to say that a lot of the people I mentor and coach, it's like they're on a journey. When I first meet them, they're on a journey looking down at the path that they're on, but they're not looking up at what the road signs are giving them. And I'll give you an example. So one of the things, these things just come to me, but it's because of reflection and what I've become. But you know, I remember sitting there one day going, like there's a framework or something that I'd like to create. It just sort of was this way of how do I help individuals, teams, organizations, society as a whole, you know, become even stronger. And I started thinking about it, and then words started coming to me. And all of a sudden, I had a framework that I call there's a need for us to care. But what CARE stands for are four words that are missing right from individuals to societies. It's collaboration, adaptability, resilience, empathy. You embrace those four words, it's going to make us into a better individual all the way to a better society because collaboration, and again, it went through self-reflection, the fact that I can't do everything by myself. Who do I need to pull in into my life? I know what I'm good at, but what's missing? So collaboration means I'm not afraid to look and ask for help, but equally I need to give back. So collaboration is so critical. But when we collaborate, the beauty of it is now I can be more adaptable, flexible. Don't fear change, embrace change. But when you're supported with collaboration, we can become adaptable. And when we are adaptable and now we start down a pathway, resilience is the journey. And resilience is this whole idea of how do we, you know, maintain the successes, but how do we recover from the setbacks? That resilience is important. And it's almost like because I'm supported by and collaborating with individuals, and I'm embracing adaptability, I can be resilient in that process. And it's almost like a wave that comes back because now, when I'm on that journey and the resilience is there, how am I looking after everyone around me? That's the empathy piece. And it all sort of circulates around it. Now, all of a sudden, I've got people saying, that is so simple and yet so powerful. We need to care. Collaboration, adaptability, resilience, and empathy. But this came to me through self-reflection of what can I build as a model that's straightforward and easy that can support and help individuals to society. That's how it happens for me.
Fascinating. And I wish we were taught this in our orientation as well in when we were starting, right? Because I know as a student you can collaborate with your instructors and professors, and then for adaptability you will make mistakes and you learn from it. For resilience, there are extrinsic factors that are not in your control that you have to push through. And then empathy, when you see someone else struggling, whether it's not having the confidence or not having the right connection to boost their potential, you should be there for them. And just so fascinating.
I really think people just need to they need to choose to hear those things because, for example, I would say maybe when I was even your age, when I was living by default, just enjoying life and honestly, I was having fun, but I wasn't too self-aware. So, for example, if Sam comes and he provides all this information, you just need to be in the right mindset to receive that information. But
Mhm.
you need to choose. It's an election, right? Um,
No,
so I think
Carlos, if I may, there's an interesting point you brought up, and it's something I write about in the Common Sense book. It's interesting. I can be who I am. I can be there. I can you know share and talk as much as possible. But it is really about that connection and that person that's ready and willing and able to. And what I write about in concept is winning the lottery, but losing the ticket. Now, what I
Mm,
mean by that is, not the lottery ticket you buy in the grocery store that's going to give you millions of dollars, but the
mm,
fact is, we actually have so
mm,
many winning lottery tickets in our life that happen and materialize
completely.
even in a daily life. Now, the interesting thing is, again, the story that I share quickly is, years ago, there was this one, as I walked out into the downtown Vancouver skyline, there was a gentleman standing on the corner, nicely dressed, seemed he was lost. So I walked up to him and I said, "Look, you seem lost. Can I help you?" And he said, "Well, I'm trying to find the Marriott Hotel." I said, "Oh, well, you know what? It's a beautiful sunny day. I'm going to the Coast Hotel. It's right next door. Walk with me and I'll show you where it is." He said, "Oh, well, that's very kind of you." So as we're walking, I was going to an event at the Coast Hotel, and I said, "Well, are you going to the Marriott for an event?" He goes, "No, no, I just moved here a month ago from Toronto. I did my diploma in tourism management and I'm going to drop my resume off at the Marriott Hotel for a front desk job. I said, "Oh, well, you know what? I know two people at the Coast Hotel. I know someone at the Holiday Inn and the Shangri-La who work in that environment. You know what? Here's my card. Send me a note and I will share these contacts." And he was like, "Oh my gosh, well, thank you." He won the lottery, but you know what? Never heard back from him. And he lost the ticket. Now, maybe he got a job. Maybe he lost my card. Maybe he thought this was too good to be true. But here's the thing, you know, 19 times out of 20, I will interact with a server or somebody in a barista, or because I have a tendency to just talk to people. And they're like, "Oh my gosh, this is what you do for a living. I need this information." And I give them my name, my email address, and I say, "But find me on LinkedIn and connect with me just so you can see it's all legit." 19 times out of 20, I never hear back from the person.
But do you
It's,
feel it's
yep.
sometimes I feel I've been through the same situation. So sometimes I feel like people don't want to be helped. Like they feel
Mhm.
uncomfortable in getting help. I don't know why, but maybe it's that, I think.
Well, in my situation, it's more they're so excited when they are like, "Oh my gosh, this is exactly what I need." I
Mhm.
think it's more of like, that they get busy with their life and they either forget or, it just for whatever reason. But what I've always loved though, and this happened, what is it? Last week, actually, somebody sent an email and in the subject line it says, "Cashing in my lottery ticket." And then and I thought, okay, this person I will dedicate my time to because they are going to, they're ready and they're willing. Um, I think part of it is not so much, Carlos, the people that I interact with, because again, when we have this conversation, oh my gosh, they're animated. They're like, "This is exactly what I need to hear." I think it's more of either they get really busy and caught up in life, or who knows what. But I don't. It may be that they're not even ready. I don't know. But 19 times out of 20, if look at the people you're interacting and engaging with, and if somebody is providing you something, make sure you embrace it and follow up on it because you never know where that person can lead you in a positive way.
No, completely,
Sam
completely.
and Carlos, I definitely want to add something to this. I'm really passionate about what you just said, Sam, which is the cashing in the lottery ticket story. I think many times in my life, I've probably been on that end too, where uh, it was a great conversation. I'm super pumped, but I never took action. So I think over the past year and a half, I've realized that everything comes down to, do you take action or not? I think that's a choice that you have. So to again, coming from the psychology sense, there's always friction in a habit when we're trying to form it. So I try to cut down the friction. The reason why I say it is when I go to an event and I have this incredible conversation with the person I feel like I can genuinely connect with and have some questions to ask. Instead of taking the card, putting it in one of my card holders, and then never looking at it again, I either take their email right away, just send them an email saying hi, or I take a picture with them and then send them a follow-up email with the picture attached so that they know that this was the person who they met. And then in their the inbox, they're able to find this email and hopefully find some time to connect. But there's this quote that I read when I was reading this book called The Hero's Journey, and it talks about when the student is ready, the teacher appears. So something that you said, Carlos, is I want to share this with you to give you more credit, to say that, you said that a couple years ago when you were younger, you had these opportunities, but you didn't take action. It's because of the knowledge that we had at that time, and perhaps that need or that desperate need to get there wasn't there at that point, and that's something that I'm still learning. So for anyone who is a mentee and having these conversations with their mentor, the only reason a mentor would be giving you time and consistently would be if the mentee shows up that whatever the mentor said last time, they actually took action. They either failed or they succeeded. But if you don't take action, then Sam wouldn't have given me more of his time. It's only because I took action to whatever knowledge that I had at that time and I showed it to him. So create a list for all the follow-up emails, email people and follow up with them in less than 24 hours, and take pictures so you remember them and they remember you. Those would be the three tips that I have for that.
Thanks, Manan.
And if I could just add to that, the funny thing is even coming back, I was in London just this last week. I flew back in last night. As I got onto the plane and had my seat, putting my stowaway, my luggage up above, there was a gentleman behind me, and I just sort of told him, I said, "Look, I'm a bit uncomfortable with my back right now. I hope you don't mind if I recline my seat a little bit, and I'll try to do it when if you're sleeping." And he just said, "No, don't worry." Like he said, "I'm going to be doing some work, but." We just had a bit of a conversation, and then it turned out that he's actually a professor at Simon Fraser University. I mean, I'm an adjunct professor at SFU. We had an amazing conversation. Here we are, just even the flight hasn't even taken off. We don't have access to Wi-Fi at this point, but we've exchanged information. We've already connected on LinkedIn, and now we're going to just meet up sometime in the near future as it works. But you never know who you're going to meet and the conversations where it goes. Uh, and again, I get it because I've been there in the beginning stages where you're, well, who, me? What have I got to offer somebody? Or, how am I going to have this conversation with somebody who's got this position or somebody like that? Don't feel intimidated. Like I said, people are people, but you find, and I wrote a blog post about this. It's called Being Loud Without a Voice. And what that means is, you know, you don't have to be this boisterous person walking around shaking hands like a politician and, like being this presence. The presence is your confidence within. And we build this confidence, and it doesn't matter where you are in your life and career. If you're a student at university, you have a level of confidence, but do you create this presence? Meaning, you walk into a room and we've seen this. You walk into a room and, there's something about somebody in that room and you're like, wow, like there's something about them. I want to go talk to them, or I'd like to go talk to them, but I'm afraid to. What I would like to share is the fact that whenever I do these workshops on personal branding, and I tell university students, and I point to them and I said, well, we're going to talk about personal branding, and I point to somebody and I said, well, do you have a brand? And they're like, yeah, not yet. What about you? And they said, no, no, I don't have a brand. What about you? And they said, no. I said, here's the thing. Right now, you have a personal brand because if I took you out of the room and I talked to your friends or family, what are they going to say about you? That's your personal brand. So, you know, understand that you have something to contribute, regardless of where you are in life. And don't be afraid to walk up to somebody but don't think of it as complicated and overthink it. Like so many times I find that people come to me saying, look, I have to go to an event and, I have to get into a conversation. How do I get into a conversation? I'm like, in the beginning, I always thought, well, how I just go and talk to people. The idea, though, is, don't overthink it. All you have to do is ask a straightforward, easy question. And the best way for me to describe it, Carlos, is, if I came to your house for dinner and I knocked on the door, is the first thing you're going to ask me is, well, can you describe, the importance of mentorship and coaching as you build your career? Is that the first thing you're going to ask me when I knock on your door? I hope not, because I'm going to walk around, I'm going to walk away. The first question would be, something like, well, how are you today?
Yeah.
Well, okay, I'm doing good. Well, I know it's raining outside. Hopefully, you were able to keep dry. How was, and it could be if you're at an event, how did you hear about the event? Ask the first question, make it an easy question, but then listen and observe to the reply. And then you can add into that conversation if you're somebody who's nervous about getting into a conversation. So many people who are of professionals in life, they're there to be able to engage in a conversation with you. You don't have to go in with this epic question that you think is going to get you a job.
Mm.
It's not going to happen. So just go in with an easy, simple question, listen and observe, and you'd be engaged in a conversation.
And the return to the thing on asking for help and mentorship, all those things, and your example of introducing or wanting to make an introduction for someone else for this front desk job, etc. Do you think? I feel like, for example, when I was like, I don't know, 10 years ago, maybe those things happened to me because I didn't felt worthy of receiving those things.
Mm.
right? I think feeling worthy of receiving opportunities, I right now in my life, I feel is very important. Before, maybe my mindset was on, I know, if on scarcity of opportunities, on that I wasn't worthy of receiving cool things. Right now, well, now is I feel really worthy of receiving cool things.
Mhm.
So now better things are happening in my life, thankfully. But I feel of course, it's not like not wanting to be helped. It's maybe not feeling worthy of receiving, of being able to receive an opportunity through that connection, etc.
Right.
So yeah,
What
yeah.
I would
What do you?
just,
Yeah,
yeah, no, what I would say to that person is, y- don't you determine if you're worthy or not. Okay. You are worthy.
exactly. Because you are.
Everybody, you are worthy. So, put that aside and, your aspirations, your thoughts and ideas. People, we all have different ideas and ways of learning from each other. So, put that thought away. Everybody is worthy. And to me, again, this goes back to whether they're, uh, whatever age to CEO, I'll have a conversation with anyone and everybody. And again, in the class I was teaching, think of it this way, like, I set up at 9:30, my class starts at 10:30, and as students are coming into the room, getting a seat, I'm walking around the room and I'm asking them, well, how are your classes going? What'd you do this last weekend? Tell me something interesting. Do you know, it's fascinating. My students have said no one's ever asked me these types of questions, and all of a sudden I'm asking them because I'm interested. And they're like, it made me feel that I have some worth here, as opposed to just sitting there listening to my lecture. Now
Mm,
they're engaged and they're like, okay, this person actually is interested in who I am as an individual.
you care at the
I
end.
do. But it's
Yeah.
interesting but why are we not doing that in a university or
Mm,
college setting?
yeah.
It's just making ourselves breaking down that barrier. And it's not, I'm up here as an individual at a higher level, and you're down here as a student, and I'm going to tell you everything you need to know.
Mm.
Um, but that's where, again, I want them to feel worthy. I want them to feel like that they matter. And again, what I'd like to just share though is this.
At the
Uh,
end, knowledge is not only transactional, knowledge is relational at the
oh,
end.
relational, but think of it this way: is, over the years, and I've done this for many years, is, I hold a single piece of a jigsaw puzzle in my hand, a single piece. And you know what? I give it to an individual in my class or when I meet somebody at an event. I get people that come up and I give them a single piece of a jigsaw puzzle. And they look at it and I said, but here's the thing, what can you do with one single piece of a jigsaw puzzle I've just given you? And they look at it and they say, well, there's not much. And I said, but see, here's the thing, it's ordinary. This is what you feel like. You feel like a single piece of a jigsaw puzzle. You don't know where you fit in. You don't know the bigger picture. But I tell them, magically, would you like me to make this a single piece of a jigsaw puzzle extraordinary? And they're like, okay. And then I say, well, I'm holding a satchel with puzzle pieces in my hand. And I said, let's focus on the satchel. I just gave you a single piece of a puzzle. Do you realize you as an individual, if you don't stay connected with me, my puzzle will never be complete without you. And all of a sudden, I see a transformation in that person's face. The fact that, oh my gosh, I'm not a single piece of a jigsaw puzzle. I'm part of something bigger. I've given over 5,000 pieces in the world to date. And the beauty of it is, I've had people tell me they've taped it to their mirror. They said it reminds me someone it tells me every morning I look at it, it reminds me someone said I matter. It's traveling in backpacks around the world. It's in little curio boxes. I've got people 10 years later at an event and they pull it out of their wallet saying, look, I still hold your puzzle piece. Like that's an example of how straightforward and simple someone matters. And the beauty of it is, Carlos, at the end of my last lecture, when I share with them this puzzle analogy and I give it to one student and I say, but afterwards, please feel free to come up and if you want, I'm happy to give you a puzzle piece. And then I start putting my equipment away and everything. and I look up and I literally have 100 people lined up wanting a piece of a jigsaw puzzle. People want to be acknowledged. People want to realize that they matter.
That's incredible. And if I
That's beautiful.
may, again, I always focus on how can we put these things into action. And let's say that you weren't in my life at that point, Sam, to say, here, yes, man, and I'll be on this podcast with you. I think the way that I see it is start a Notion page, start a Word document where you write down the big wins and the mistakes for that year. And then, for example, for last year, my biggest win was running the sun run for the first time. I never thought I could be a runner. And then one of the mistakes that I made was I failed my first driving exam here in Vancouver, right? But then, and then you can categorize it by month, and then you, at the end of the year, you see that, wow, I've achieved so much. And that's one of the things that made me feel like, oh, I'm worthy for good things. Something that you said, Carlos, is I'm worthy for it because look how far I've come. Look at my mistakes and look at my achievements. So my question to you, Carlos, is you definitely had an imposter syndrome before. How did you overcome it? How do you feel, or why do you feel now that you're worthy of these good things?
I feel reading what helped me a lot. Learning from other people, uh, doing self-reflection, deep self-reflection. Actually, right now, for example, I'm doing therapy, but I feel I'm doing therapy in a good moment in my life. So I like the thing is I don't need to be like I don't know in depressed to be in therapy. I'm really in a good moment. I mean, really in a moment in my life I'm
Incredible.
really enjoying. So you like I don't want to wait for something bad to happen to go to therapy. Well, I'm just enjoying therapy and just I really want to go deeper into my self-reflection. So, so what cut my imposter syndrome was it was basically reading, hearing others people's stories, hearing about other people's failures. And that inspired me a lot. Also, I worked a lot on my mindset. I really feel that I can really attract positive things, and that in every conversation I go in, or I try to be as much of self-aware as possible. So I tell myself, okay, right now I'm going to this kind of scenario. I will see what I want to see, and I just allow things. I think allowing is very important. So I just allow things to come to me. And actually, the last 3 years have been incredible. Like, uh,
Incredible.
yeah.
If
So
if
I have really enjoyed it, all the
and
process.
if I could just add in about this imposter syndrome piece, it was never an easy journey for me in life. And think of it this way: in high school, I was awkward, shy, quiet, not like I am now. That's totally different now. But I was awkward, shy, and quiet. And I remember, I was graduating from university, sorry, from high school, and I went to my counselor because I had just applied to Cap College. Back then it was college. And I went to him and because we had a good relationship, and I said, "Look, I just want to let you know I'm so excited. I applied to Cap College." And he basically said, "Sit down. Let's have a conversation." And he wasn't being malicious in this or condescending, but he just said, "Sam, I don't know if you're suited for post-secondary because of how awkward, shy, quiet is. It may not be a good environment for you." And I sat there going like, "Oh." And I went home and I was literally going to actually contact Cap College to withdraw my application because I don't belong there. Well, 2 weeks after, I thought, well, no, you know what? They're going to see that I don't belong there. So I'm not going to even bother. Why would I embarrass myself and contact them to withdraw my application? It's not going to materialize. Well, 2 weeks later, I got a note from Cap College saying, "Congratulations, we look forward to welcoming you on campus." And I opened the letter and I froze. I'm going like, well, what do I do now? Because I don't belong there. Imposter syndrome hit. Well, I thought, oh, okay, I guess I'm going to go. I went that first semester, and Carlos, it was the most difficult semester I ever endured because I felt like somebody was going to tap me on the shoulder saying, why are you here? You don't belong here." And Okay, so the first semester, was I like the top student? No. Was I the worst? Absolutely not. But I was like, okay, I got through this first semester. I'm going to try one more, but imposter syndrome still sat with me. And I got through that term. Then I transferred to SFU. And I remember going through my classes. Some of them I did exceptionally well, some of them not so good. But I sat at graduation and I was like, man, I can't believe that counselor was wrong. Many years later, I went and I did my master's at University of Exeter in England. And at that graduation, I was like, oh my gosh, they were really wrong. And now, for 12 years, I've been teaching in university courses. So my thing is, imposter syndrome, it's a reality. But it told me instead of bringing someone down, what can I do to bring someone up? Because there's enough people out there telling you why you can't do this, why you shouldn't do it. There's a lot of what I called my second TEDx, which was at Langara actually, was how do you activate the voice within to be louder than the noise around? And the biggest thing I will
Completely.
say is find the champions and enablers, the people who aren't going to just say things to make you feel good, but who believe in you. And
Yeah.
there are people who will believe in you.
The
But that's
uplifters.
Oh, totally. But the idea is the imposter syndrome is there if you listen to the noise.
Mm,
And this is where I've dedicated my life to say, I'm not going to be the noise. If there's something that is important to you, how can I support your journey in this? If I'm not the right person, I'm going to put you in touch with the right person that I have in my area or my list of people I know that can actually help you. So I thought that piece on imposter syndrome is really important because it is a reality and you are good enough, you are worthy enough, but find the right people who believe in you and who aren't going to let you fall and who actually will support you in the journey that you want to go on.
yeah. I feel surrounding yourself with the right people is completely important. Yeah. One of the key. And so being mindful of time, of course, just to have a closure. So what's one thing, one phrase, something that you would like to share with the audience, just to close?
Carlos, I would like to answer this question with the book that I recently read, which is this one. It's called Surrounded by Idiots. It's about how a boss employed, people around him and then started saying, "Oh, that guy's an idiot. That guy's an idiot." And then an interviewer asked him a question, said, "Well, who employed these people?" And then the answer was, "I did. I'm the idiot." But what this book helps you do is to communicate effectively with people, whether it's in business or in life. And although it categorizes people into blue, red, yellow, and green, it's just to allow you to think, to basically make you realize that people just talk differently. There are different ways to communicate with different
Mm,
people. And, this is where I combine the psychology side as well as the business side to say, wow, if I start being more curious and really understanding how the other person likes to communicate instead of me thinking that that guy's an idiot, I don't want to talk to him, it allows me to have more empathy and it allows me to connect with them on a deeper, meaningful level. So if there's a book that I would suggest reading is Surrounded by Idiots and also Sam's book about finding your own purpose. And Sam, I forgot the name of that book. You're going to have to remind me.
Oh,
The Roots,
yeah, the identity. It's called Lost
the
and
identity.
Found. Lost and
lost and
Found.
found. Yeah, I saw that.
Seeking the past, finding myself.
It's a beautiful book. I know when I came here, I definitely had thoughts about, well, why am I Indian? I started to hate being Indian. I started to hate my own color
Mm,
because I wanted to be more Western. That because I saw the people around me, they didn't have accents that I do. So I definitely went through that own journey. And Sam's book really helped me to, number one, be more empathetic towards myself. And that really just stemmed from self-love. And also be there for people when they're struggling with these things. So those were the two books that really impacted me. So sorry, I don't have a perfect quote, but if you
no,
were to
no, it's
read those
perfect.
two
Beautiful,
books,
beautiful,
it'd be
beautiful.
amazing.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Appreciate it, Manan.
Yeah, and I guess for me, this one's an easy question because a quote that I've lived for many, many years now, and I've embraced it. In fact, funny enough, it's been quoted in many of the graduation ceremonies at SFU as well. The quote is, Everyone's life is an autobiography. Make yours worth reading. It's a reminder that each and every one of us are living stories. We have something to contribute to this world. It's a challenge to each person to always be on the verge of what's my autobiography going to be? How can I make it into a rich autobiography? It's a reminder that as you build your stories, the fact is that capture the essence of those stories, create memories, go out and do amazing things, but equally at the same time, it doesn't have to be large, huge, impactful things. It could be small things that you just embrace that makes a really great day for you. You know, we're all living stories, and this is where I learn from people because of the fact that you know, I get them to realize that their autobiography, and they are writing their autobiography. Remember, you are a living story.
Amazing. Thank you very much to both. Highly appreciate it. Hi, everyone. This is V2RF Stories of Ours podcast. Peace out.